It's like your first time saying, no, fuck off, I don't want to do it. Do you recall that feeling though?
Yeah, it was a feeling of dread. It's just a thing that just gradually I'd do things and then feel like shit after I've done it, or I don't want to be here. I want to be at home in my underpants watching cartoons or something.
Let's start this thing, Paul.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
西手
Mic check, 1, 2.
Hello, it's Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Us Duo Podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and this one on relationships, we're talking about friendships. Something that we haven't really touched on recently. We've done a few in the past. So one with our friend Pete, all about friendships, and also another one, adult friendships harder to form. But this one, we are going to discuss values we see in friendships.
And what not to bring in a very, very close friend of mine, which you may have all seen previously in his episode Naked Quitting, Mr. Hao Tran.
Hello.
Oi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so we've had Hal on one about Korea. We had one where we're just mucking around for Christmas, and now about friendships. So let's start off with what our current situation is like. Can we all describe our friendship in one word? So Hal, let's start with you.
It'd be durian.
Why durian?
From the outside, we look like a bunch of pricks. Inside, we're a bunch of softies and have the ability to clear an entire room with our stench. Hey, Sam.
That's a pretty good word, actually.
Nice. That's good. Whoa, I can't compare to that, but I was going to say we are quite dynamic. And I say that because our group of friends, we cover quite a lot of different things holistically. You know, we've got different hobbies, we've got a combination of similar hobbies as well. And I think we can also come together and discuss and talk about those things and share those experiences. So that's why I say we're dynamic in that fact.
And for those who don't know, just a little background. So you, as in Sam and Hal, you guys are like in the same friendship circle.
Yes.
So they're describing each other. So Hal thinks you're a durian, you think Hal is done.
Oh, we're all collectively a durian. We're an acquired taste.
Okay.
You know?
Well, for mine, the only word, like the first word that came to my mind is scattered. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like I am a person that doesn't, like I'll have a group, like a main group that sometimes I would go to, but I'm more a person who likes to hang out with people individually, catch up with them, and I have a lot of different types of friends around. So that's why I say scattered, because I have many people that I catch up with individually.
Yeah,
Okay.
That does make sense. I think it's good to have scattered friendships to some degree. I was going to say, even though I have like a main group, but I do have small niche groups, whether it's like maybe your work group friends or something like that, or someone that you might have as a side group, depending on your hobby or whatever that you do.
Yeah.
So you could say I am somewhat similar, but I have my main durian group there.
Yeah, we're tight knit, right?
Yeah.
We're stuck together in little clusters.
That's right, yeah.
Until you peel them apart.
And spit out the seeds.
Yeah.
Gross. So from these friendship groups that we have now today, what's the core values or the main values that we all look for?
I'd say trust and also support.
Mm.
I think trust is a core aspect of many relationships, even outside of being friends with someone. You need to trust people to be able to have meaningful, long-lasting relationships.
Yeah.
Support as well. Yeah, if you're going through tough times or whatever, your support network is pretty important.
So when you meet someone new, is that like the two things that you not measure against, but some things that you try and see if they have those values in them?
Eventually, yes, but on face value, it's very hard to gauge that the things that you find out
Over
further.
time.
Yeah, over
Over time, yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of gauge their personality and their character early on.
Mine's a combination of the trust and the support. But for me, massively is communication too. because as much as you build the trust and as much as you have that support group, you need the communication and the fact that, if someone was going through some shit, you're open to have that communication and not be judged for that. And I think that's why I'm such a upfront kind of person, but I try to be my best to not be rude about it. So I think when you have a tight niche group, you have to have those open, candid conversations where you can actually be like, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah, I think an offset of that trust conversation, which we'll also touch on a little later. I think for me as well, I agree with these values, but another one is honesty. So honesty falls into trust and being open to communicate. And also another one is respect. So being honest is being able to respect the other person, but still be honest and open up about something. Because, yeah, a lot of friendships I've had in the past, it's like you have all these friendships they are nice to you and they are there for you and support you, but they're not honest with themselves. Like they'll be like, oh, it's fine. Like they may not agree with something that you've done, but they don't open up and tell you that they didn't like what you've done or they didn't agree with what you've done. And over time, it may bottle up. So I think honesty is something that I look for now.
Yeah.
Being able to be honest.
That is really important when it comes to friendships too. For me, I think we've discussed this in a previous episode in relation to like that friendship tiering and things like that. And I think when you've got a tight niche group, you need to have that form of that honesty to really build on that relationship with your friends.
Yeah, and respect. You can always have different opinions and share different thoughts and things, but also know when to respect other people and let them be able to feel or think the way that they want to, but still respect their thoughts and opinions and then
Yeah.
respecting your own. I think self respect is also a big thing, like valuing yourself within a group so that you don't just do anything that other people say or just do things that you don't like. Yeah, just respecting yourself to open up.
So would you say on that front that respecting boundaries is also another thing that's
Yep,
important? Like when to communicate, should you communicate,
for sure.
like if and when?
Yeah, because if it's like things that you don't want to do, and just because like a friend likes it, or they're like pushing you to, not like in a bad way, but they're like, come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
Or like, why aren't you drinking? Like, drink with us.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
kind of thing. And you don't drink anymore. Just have that boundary and be like, sorry, I don't drink anymore. Like, that's just not something that I'm interested
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah. So while on that, obviously, time changes and maybe friendships might even change. Is there any like pivotal moments that got you to learn and understand your own values in friendships or things that changed for you that made you have to think about what you look for in friends?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I didn't have many friends at school because I changed schools 3 times.
Mm.
Didn't have time or enough maturity to form like friends from primary school or high school. After that, I started making friends with people based on my hobbies, so cars. And there's a point where I kind of slowly grew out of that. And I realized at that point that they weren't really friends, they were kind of acquaintances. So they were only friends with you, friends, inverted commas, yeah, because they're cars. And once that was gone, they slowly just Homer Simpsoned into the bushes.
Yeah, phased out.
Yeah, they faded out, and I realized, oh, okay, I don't really have many close friends at that point that I could actually rely on if I fell into some trouble or something. So yeah, I did a bit of self-reflecting, and I just had to get out of my comfort zone and find what I wanted in a friend. Is a process of self-discovery, I guess.
Yeah. So how did you do that? Like, what are some things that you did to help you understand?
I was at uni at the time, so I just started to hang out with people at uni, learnt about the dynamics between different people of different cultures and backgrounds. And you find out fairly quickly where you slot in socially with certain people. And you say, okay, I like this person because we have similar interests or similar ways of thinking. And you kind of figure it out that way as a young person. And then, yeah, over time, you start to narrow down, figure out what you like, value in a friend.
I think similar to Hal, because with me during high school, I faced the same thing. I went through a few different schools as well, and I was immature in the fact of trying to, build friendships and whatnot. So I think that self-discovery initially was definitely me, and I always chopped and changed between friendships. So like I mentioned this in the previous episode where I was talking about me hanging around stoners, hanging around different, jocks and things like that. And that was just part of me trying to self-discover what kind of person I was, true to myself. And obviously towards the end of high school, that's when I realized, okay, I'm more like an all-rounder. And I found like, I wouldn't really say found, but I honed in on a few guys that was really people that I could vibe with. For me, I think my experience was very much like a massive group of friends. And then as time goes on, you trickle down to a small niche group of friends and you figure out, okay, well, this is my true core friendship. You know, people that you went to study with, people that you did hobbies with, and then you hone in on those specific characters that you go, okay, these guys are the guys that I really do value.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if there's any like pivotal moments I would say. It's just over time, like I change, people change, and I think I self reflect quite a lot. And the biggest thing that I always find myself asking is why am I always feeling like I'm doing things that I don't want to do, or like not that I don't enjoy it, but I'm not 100% being like, hell yeah, I want to do that. And I realize it's just because I'm always saying yes to things. And then as you get busier, you have more responsibilities. And then like you just don't have time or you really just don't have the energy to do things like that. I was just starting to think like, what's happening? Why am I always just like, just don't feel like doing this thing? And yeah, it just comes to that point. I realize I just keep saying yes. And so when you said boundaries, I actually do resonate with that because that was the biggest thing is I had no boundaries. Like I'm
Yeah.
a very down to earth person, like very ready to do whatever. But at some point you still need some boundaries doing things like too many things and then you just get tired.
Yeah.
So that was like the thing that I slowly learnt about myself over time.
Do you have any stories that you could share about you not understanding your boundaries and just saying yes to everything?
No like specific story, but I know back then, I think you guys have also experienced I used to drink a lot. I go like party clubbing a lot. And I was one of the first like girls in the group that was known to always just go out and drink and club and like I was that cool person that always did that. And then because I started that early, I think I ended that party life early too. Whereas like all my other friends are now like in that phase because they're allowed to go out. They don't have curfews anymore. Whereas I'm like been there, done that. So there was like this rollover phase where people kind of thought or saw me as that like party girl, that person who just drank so much. And then they're like, come on, have a drink. And I'm kind of like, nah, I don't really feel like it anymore. They're like, what happened? And I think that's just like where it comes in, where I just don't do that stuff anymore. And I just didn't want to keep saying yes to be that old person because I'm now focusing on like career or focusing on learning other things. And drinking is just not that part of my life anymore.
Yeah, so it's just a phase in your life. What
Yeah.
you basically go through that journey, you've done that, you're like, yeah, okay, I've had my fun. Now it's moving on to the next thing, right?
Yeah. And dealing with the questions like where people are like, oh, come on, like, why aren't you drinking anymore? Or, like, let's just have one drink or like, come on, let's just have some fun and things like that. Dealing with that is hard to me because I'm a person who doesn't like to let people down. So it's putting in those boundaries, respecting myself, and not conforming to things I really don't want to do.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you? How have you got any stories from past that you went through?
So I was kind of similar to Amelia with the people pleasing aspect in my late teens, early 20s. I didn't like the idea of letting people down. So I just said yes to a lot of things I didn't want to do. Over time, I just realized that it doesn't matter what you do in life, you eventually piss someone off. So you just slowly grow a spine, to say it bluntly. You
Yeah.
kind of just adapt and you realize, okay, it's healthy to say no when you know it's not right for you.
There is that saying, it's like if you don't have control over yourself, someone will have control over you. And it's a little bit of that concept because if you keep saying yes to other people, they're controlling you rather than you taking control.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just used to volunteer my own time to causes that I didn't really believe in. I don't know why I did it. I just did it just because I thought I'd fit in, I guess. And yeah, now I realize, look back, it's part of the learning curve.
Do you recall in a moment where you actually, it's like your first time saying, no, fuck off, I don't want to do it?
Oh, it's a hard question.
Yeah.
Said no so many times now. Can't remember the first time.
But do you recall that feeling though?
Yeah,
You know what I
it was a feeling of dread because I was so used to just saying yes.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that just gradually over time I'd do things and then feel like shit after I've done it or while I'm doing it. And I'm like, why
Why am I here?
I don't want to be here. I want to be at home in my underpants watching cartoons or something.
Captain Underpants.
Yeah, the biggest thing I learned was transitioning from a big group to a smaller group. And the pivotal moment that made me realize that such a big group wasn't for me was the fact that there's such a massive dynamic of people and everyone was so different and diverse in their own perspective. But I think what really made me realize that the true values of friendships is what I'm chasing. And those things that we mentioned at the start was your honesty, your trust, the communication was when, I went through a few moments where people would, what's the word? Two-faced.
Yeah.
People would talk shit in front of you. Or
In
they'll,
that group,
they're
that
trying
big
to,
group.
yeah, they're trying to be like your best friend. And behind the scenes, you realize that they weren't actually like that. And I think it got to the point where I was sick of being in those situations and those scenarios where I was like, well, okay, I need to stop being around people who are like that. Yeah, like I remember being in this big group and there's a particular person that you value, you get close to them, so you think, oh yeah, we're good friends, and you share things with them, things in the fact of like you're being honest, sharing your thoughts about certain things and perspectives and things like that, and to find that that conversation has been shared, which shouldn't have been shared. And that's when could stir the pot with a few other friends. And that's when you realize, okay, well, the only person that I really told is this person. And that's when friendships get fucking, rowdy or arguments happen and the misunderstanding sort of forms from there.
And then the Chinese whispers where
That's right.
messages get misinterpreted.
Yeah. And it is bound to happen in terms of a big group like that. So I think that moment made me realize like it's not really worth having such a big group of friends and to choose and to be wise about who you're talking to. Like what Hal was saying, the judge of the character, which obviously takes time, right? But yeah, that's a really important pivotal moment that I realized that it's better off to know that these particular types of friendships are the friendships that you need to value.
Which is a good segue into the next question. The friendships and how to go through the changes of like yourself changing or your friends changing. How do you maintain the friendships or know if that friend will come along on that joyride with you as you evolve? Because we as people grow, like the things that we do changes, things that we have interest in also changes.
I think that comes off the back of what I was just mentioning before, the judge of the character as well. And that takes time to understand who your friends are. And I think ultimately your friend or friend group should be able to sort of mold and merge with you. Understanding that, there are times when you may be focusing on certain things, whether it's life, whether it's career, or you've got hobbies that you're now taking on board. But I think ultimately, if someone truly respects you, they will always come back to you and check up on you. And to me, that's the trust. That's the bond that you have with that particular person or that group. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you haven't seen that person in fucking 3 or 4 or 5 months, or you haven't spoken to that person. The conversation shouldn't change. You know what I mean? To me, how I value friendships is like, for an example, if I haven't seen Hal for a year and I message him and I'm like, hey dude, how are you? Like that's me valuing him as a friendship. And I would expect someone to at least do the same thing in some degree back to me.
No, that's true. I agree with that, but I also feel like that whole "how are you? What are you up to? Where have things been?" That's a very easy conversation to have. But I think that for me personally, how I see if this person's like here for the ride or here to evolve with you or like respect you is like when you tell them this is what I'm doing now or what am I up to. One key thing that I've always picked up on, like to differentiate between the people, is like the way that they ask questions. Like some might be like, "Oh, why are you doing this?" or like, "Why are you doing like this whole thing?" Whereas like other people who are just there to curiously see what you're up to, they'll be like, "Oh, what got you into this?" Just really being curious about where you are now and what you're doing, as opposed to being like, "Why are you doing this?" or like,
it's like a judging kind of
yeah, like just the
character,
tone and how they
yeah.
frame the question is a really big key indicator for me.
I'm kind of with Sam on that. Key indicator would be someone that checks up on you and genuinely cares about how your life has been. And they go a bit deeper and kind of like remember stuff from your last conversation and bring that up in the discussion.
Yeah.
Because at times you could talk to someone 3, 4, 5, 6 months apart
Don't remember.
You don't remember anything. Your conversation's just surface level stuff.
Like you have to remind them, like, which is fine. Like sometimes you forget, but
Yeah.
then if you're like constantly being like, "Oh, remember I told you this and that," and you're like, "Okay."
Yeah. Like, understandably, sometimes people have their own lives to live and you're not the center of their world. But
Yeah.
it's nice to kind of know somebody remembers important things about your life as well.
Yeah. Makes it more like,
It's more personal, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like at least you know that this person actually listened to you, actively listened to you.
Yeah.
mm,
You know what I mean? Because just to touch off the back of that, like, yeah, sure, what you're saying, you can obviously have, reach out, be like, hey, how you going? And then you have the people who would judge you as to why you've done certain things or your actions and some sort. But to have people who actually actively listen and actually be curious in the conversation, to me, that's more of a friend.
yeah, which is how they ask the questions after you have caught up with what you're doing now is very important.
Yeah.
So, do we think that change is good, like change in friendship? So maybe you actually change your friend group, or
Depends on the situation, I guess. It depends on what your current friendship group is. If you see your current friends as not really serving you well, then yes, change is good. But then again, I think change is good all
in
round. Yeah,
general.
if you change for the better as a group, then that's good.
Yeah. Or even if like every individual in that group is changing, but you're all evolving together
Yeah.
and just learning from each other, even if it may not be the same thing
Yeah.
or whatever it is, it's just learning and growing together.
Yeah, change is good. The friends that you have, if you can bring them along, is better.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm very much big on the rapport and that foundation that you originally build from. And I think if you're all on the same understanding of those components that we talked about at the start, your trust, your communication and things like that, then it doesn't matter what that individual is going through, in terms of what they're focusing on, different hobbies or career or whatever it is, you can still follow along their journey too.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think one big thing though, like if we were to change, like you want that friend to come along, it's kind of important to also share why. So maybe you went through something like some hard times and now you've changed your view on something. It's good to just open up and share like why you've changed rather than being like, this is me now, like deal with it. Like it's just
Yeah.
like this is why I see things from this way because of this happened. And it kind of helps you bond together because now you both understand each other even better. So I think it's good to explain changes sometimes.
The biggest thing is being open to the conversation of why. That's what's going to really differentiate those like acquaintances as opposed to people who you really truly value as true friends. You may not agree with certain things, but as long as you're supporting them and having the conversations and things of that, that's really important.
Yeah, and that's why I said respect at the start, like values that I see in friendships now. And it's a bit on like the mindset behind it all. All three of us, we said trust is a big thing. So how is trust the foundational value in friendships? Like why is trust such a big thing for us?
That's a very deep question.
Well, we're here to get deep, so
Yeah. Hard to pinpoint. It just feels right to have someone you can trust with all your deepest, darkest secrets. Being able to share that with someone or people.
Do you think trust and respect goes hand in hand?
Hand in hand in what way?
Well, if you trust someone, to, like what Hal says, if you're sharing things and moments that are available to you, you're trusting someone to, well, listen to it and understand it, but you're also trusting that person to respect it because your decisions may not be something that they may agree to. So so respect is a big component too. Like for an example, if Hal came to me and said, "Hey, I've done something in my life that I don't agree with now," and he told me he did something really bad, like let's just say he punched someone in the face, and I was like, "Oh,
So rude.
I don't agree with that," but he's done that, and that's a level of okay, well, I respect his decision, but I could have said something else and been like, "Hey, we're not friends because I don't like violence" or something like that. That's the level of respect.
Would you reframe that as acceptance then?
Yeah, I
you
don't think it's
accept-
respect.
Even though you don't agree with what I've done, I punched some dude in the head because he looked funny or something. Would you then like, okay, that's not right, but I accept what you've done I don't respect you for it. I've accepted that you've done it. Is that kind of what you're trying to get at?
In that
Do you think so?
scenario, I think it's acceptance because it's not really respect.
Wholeheartedly just accept that they've done something that you might not necessarily agree with.
But you still respect the person though.
You may or may not respect them at that point, but you still accept that they've done whatever it is that they've done.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see more of it as a fact of I accept the fact of your decision that you made,
Yep.
but I still respect you as a friend.
Oh, yep. Okay.
So it doesn't matter what decision you made because that's obviously an acceptance, but I still respect you regardless of what choices you make.
I think it's hard to answer with that scenario too because it
Oh,
could
yeah,
go
yeah.
in so
That's
many
probably not
different
the best,
ways.
but I'm
Yeah.
just trying to say like I kind of see respect and trust.
Yeah. But I can see what you mean. Like, yeah, there is some level of respect in trusting in someone. Like, you trust that that person will respect that this is like something that you shared between each other and respecting that's their choice or whatever it is. There is some level of respect in a trust in someone. But like the trust is like the main foundation, I think. But it's always paired with something else.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
It
like
wouldn't
paired
just solely be the one thing.
yeah, some other element.
Yeah, it grows with trust. If you respect someone, can't think of a scenario where you, in a friendship group anyway, where you don't respect someone, but you trust them at the same time.
Yeah, doesn't go hand in.
Yeah.
So I think with trust, the way I would see it is trust is a combination of things. To me, it's a combination of the respect, it's a combination of the communication because I trust someone to be able to communicate to me in multiple scenarios, even if it was a right or a wrong situation. And they would respect me enough to be like, hey, I don't agree with what you're looking at doing, but this is my 2 cents.
The reason why trust is a foundational value is I'm just trying to think in like a bigger picture. Everyone is an individual and you trust someone to be your friend. Like no one has to be your friend, but you trust them to choose you as a friend or trust them to come to you or you go to them for like advice or like sharing like funny moments. So that's also why it's like a foundational thing.
Yeah, because it's like me going to Hal and I say, well, I trust Hal in his ability to tell me what, in his opinion, what is right or wrong. Or I trust him to actually guide me in what he thinks is potentially the right decision in his point of view. And that trust is obviously more than that. It goes deeper, right?
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to answer. I'm just trying to think.
Do you think it goes back to caveman days where you need to be able to trust your fellow cavemen to have your back in case you
They're
get
like
attacked?
allies and
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like everyone is an individual. You can only really put your trust that this person is gonna be here for you, even
Yeah.
though like they verbally is like, yeah, I'm your friend. But you yourself have to trust in that person to believe that they will come back or to believe that they will help you or want to help you or giving their best advice to you.
Yeah.
Like all that different components of trust is something that you just really need to put out there and really trust in that person, whoever that you're building that friendship with.
Yeah. And I think from an alternative perspective, it's like building rapport. It's like when you do business development, you've got to build the rapport for that person to trust you. It's a two-way street then, right? So then when you build that rapport, then that person will obviously give you and trust whatever that you're offering, whether it's a service, if it's something that you may know knowledge-wise.
Yeah. And it's something that you have to build over time. I don't know why. I just thought of like all the games that we play, you know, like Saboteur,
Yeah.
where the reason why you have like trust is because when you start off, you have to make it believable that you're trustable. Like you have to do these actions. By your actions, people will see like, oh yeah, you're a trustworthy person until you like at the very end of the game, you sabotage the whole entire path and you're like, oh shit, like I trusted the wrong person. So like it's not a like an overnight thing. It's something that you have to build.
Yeah, it takes
over
time. Yeah, it takes time to build that awareness.
On trust, what I also said at the start is that my type of friendship is very scattered in a way, like in a good way. And to me, that means that I have a diverse range of friends. And like, I kind of prefer having friendships that way because there's just so many different things that you can learn from different people. And like, they're like that friendship tier conversation that we had in a different episode. There's like different people say different things. And sometimes you can't go to someone who may understand everything about you. So you have like these different types of friendships that serve different purposes, and same vice versa, and you help them as well. So do we think that it's good to have a diverse range of friendships?
Diverse in terms of people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, like different backgrounds or different experiences, like enjoy different things.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's very important. At the same time, for me personally, I over the years my friendship circle has shrunken. Came to realize the importance of quality over quantity, like most of us probably have discovered. And in doing so, I haven't really prioritized diversity, but I do have friends that are from different backgrounds. And yeah, getting feedback from people who don't have the same thinking pattern as you or come from a completely different culture or whatever
Give you their
yeah,
perspectives.
it can pull you out of some bad thought patterns, or you know, if you're stuck in a certain way of thinking, they give a fresh perspective. So yeah, I think diverse friend groups within reason. Like you
Yeah,
don't want like 100 people from.
100
Yeah,
individuals.
exactly. At that point, your feedback becomes a bit untrustworthy, I guess, because you don't have enough time to build enough trust with 100 people. If you keep your circle small, it's easier. A small but diverse group.
Yeah, that's kind of what mine is. It's just like I have a handful of individual people that I like to go to and like just catch up and even like see what they're up to or lean on them for advice.
Yeah, no, I agree with Hal. A small, diverse range of friendships is important. Like I said before, like you might develop a good relationship with peers in your job or peers in your hobby. There's always going to be different people that think differently, the way they communicate, with the way they perceive things. Like for example, if I look at work, I have a small niche of people that I would go to and speak to for actual guidance and mentoring. And I know that I can trust their feedback into where I could potentially work towards when it comes to career.
Would you call them friends though or colleagues?
I will call them friends because I still talk to them outside. Like I may not work with them now, but I still talk to them. I still keep up with them.
Yep.
So I would consider that as a friend. Whereas I like if I was still working with them, then that could be more like a colleague.
Yeah. But has anyone ever had a experience with toxic friends then?
In my earlier days, yes. And I think that was also the part of my influence to how I find friendships. Because there was a moment where I was trying to self reflect and develop myself into self discovery in terms of that, I guess, what kind of person I am. And yeah, for sure, there are a group of friends that I have maybe dabbled with that weren't as good.
So how do you figure that out? Like what do you see in these people that you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of toxic?
If you're being forced to do certain things or be at certain places that you are, one, not comfortable to be in, or two, you don't want to be in, then that's like one of the signs to say, okay, this is not the right friendships I should
Like
be in.
peer pressuring?
Yeah, and I think that's my experience when it comes to that.
What about you, Hal? Have you had any toxic experience?
Yes, on different levels. For me, I hung out with some undesirables.
Something
I
more toxic than durian?
Durian's a delight. Thank you very much.
I like durian. So.
At the time, I just didn't have enough, I guess, emotional intelligence to realize they were bad for me. And over, I don't know, a few years, you realize, okay, these people don't make me feel good. For me, a toxic friend is someone who, when you hang out with them, it doesn't really feel like you're
Your
on the same
cup's not
page.
filled.
Yeah, it's like, why are you friends with them? Like, do you even have the same interests or belief systems as they do?
Like the values don't align.
Yeah, yeah, like the way they think, talk, and act.
Yeah. And like one thing I wanted to ask like off the back of this is like because I feel like the word toxic friends can that
It's a
person
negative connotation.
is like a bad person. But do we think that toxic people necessarily have to be a bad person?
Just not right for you. Yeah.
It's just not right.
Yeah, I agree because that's like what I was gonna say is what I've learned over time is like I haven't really had a toxic friend per se, but it's more like over time you realize you just have people who aren't like vibing the same way as
That's right.
you or like don't have the same interests or like you keep again going back to the people pleasing thing, you keep pleasing them, but it's not like a two-way thing. Like
Yeah.
it's always just pleasing what they want to do and they don't do what you want to do, or you're always checking up on them and you have that conversation, but they don't check up on you.
Is the energy shared between the two? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those moments where you just go, well, I've done this, I've done that, but am I getting the same thing back, or are they reciprocating?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it necessarily has to be the same thing,
Oh
but are
yeah.
they doing something for you, or like are they thinking about you? It's kind of like the same as relationship. If you're always out there doing something for your partner, but your partner's not thinking of you or not doing something that they know that you like, over time you get sick of it, right? And you're like, okay, this is not working out. And it's the same with friendships.
What if you just do stuff for them out of the goodness of your own heart and you don't expect anything in return? Would you still stay friends with that person? Like your relationship goes much deeper than you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
I think it really depends. Like that's why I think it's not like a one for one thing. Like say I helped you on your car last week, I don't expect that person to come and help me with my car. It's more like what have they done to show that they care? So they could be like, "Hey, let's go grab lunch," or "Hey, check up on you the week after." Or like doing something where it's like showing that they think of you. So it's fine that if I'm going to help them with something like their assignment
Mm.
or their problems that they're going through. Like as long as there's something in return where
Yeah.
it's just like about the care aspect, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think uh, it's very much like them genuinely caring. Like I'm more of an action kind of person. I think that's how I figure out whether that person is true or not. Like the actions of how they talk to me. How do they listen? Do they seem like they genuinely care? Holistically, that's how I understand whether or not that is a true friend or if it's a toxic one. Like there's different types of people. There's people that are very transactional. People out there very much like, hey, you do something for me, then you're worthy,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't deal with that.
right? So I think that takes time to figure out and understanding that particular character. And then that's your judge to say, well, okay, this guy's probably not the right person for me.
I think listening is such a big thing. Just being able to have a friend that actually listens. Because I've had people where like this is like a getting to know someone stage, and you talk to them like they're like, "How's your day?" and stuff, but you can tell like their eyes and they're not even looking
The
at
body
you.
language.
Yeah, the whole body language is like they want to be somewhere else, and that's my first red flag. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this person's not genuinely curious about you. They're just here to make friends or look like they're making friends. I'm like, not my type of person.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like people are just very complicated beings. Like sometimes you'll have friends where you've known for your entire life display or portray traits of toxicity, but you kind of sweep it under the rug because you've known them for that long. You're okay with it. It's not like they're toxic all the time. For example, your example there where you're talking to someone and they're piss fighting around on their phone, not really
Listen,
engaged. They're not
yeah.
engaged. They're kind of there, but they're not. And you kind of say, okay, that's okay. Am I okay with that?
Yeah, that's a good
You
one.
know, you know what I mean? Like you don't. There's no like black and white kind of. This
Yeah,
guy's
there's so
toxic.
many other aspects because maybe outside of that, they do actually help you with something
Yeah,
else.
that's it.
But if they're constantly just not really there for you, then that's different.
I've got friends where I've known since primary school, and recently I've kind of questioned questioned myself whether these people are actually close friends because of the whole growing apart thing. Our interests don't align. They display certain things like what you've just mentioned.
Mm. So, do you think time has a play in whether or not you should keep a friendship or not?
That's a tricky one because like, over say you've been friends with someone for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. You've spent that much time building trust and rapport, respect for each other. That could outweigh small toxic traits. So I guess it's up to the person to gauge whether, okay, this is too much toxicity for me, and that outweighs the respect, the trust I have for this person, or they break your trust somehow. That's a major a pillar of friendship that you value the most. If you lose trust in them and you just pull the pin.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because I was going to say, because some people get it twisted in terms of, oh, we've known each other for, we went to school together, so that's like you're my best friend because of
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
You know what I mean? They set time as a factor of true friendship.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that because I think, well, yeah, sure, you spent time together, you've seen each other go through these things and whatnot. But if we peel the skin back and say, well, what is the friendship core? And you can see that toxicity there where it's like, oh, they don't listen, they don't value your time, they just label you as a best friend because of time, then it's not true.
Yeah, and it's also going back to that, have they evolved with you? Because maybe back then when you knew them when you were 10, they were actually really good friends with you, or you guys were actually good friends, but they changed over time. So it's like kind of constantly re-evaluating like where you guys at. Are your values still aligned? Do you guys still share the same interest, or do they still care for each other? Like those things need to be re-evaluated every single time. Like not every single time, but re-evaluated some point in time. And if that's changed, it's not that like we can't be friends or anything. It's just like we're not as close as we used to be.
Yeah. And that leads on to how do we maintain healthy relationships or friendships? Because when we reflect back on change, people change over time, right? As we grow older, we mature. Whatever tickles your fancy changes, right? So I think maintaining that is also a difficult one.
Especially when your life has just become more and more
it's
involved with
harder.
different things.
Yeah, and then it's going to be natural that things that you enjoy is not going to be the same as what your friend has or will like. But I always come back to that one factor of, well, as long as we still have those deep conversations, as long as we still have those genuine conversations where we care and are actually actively listening and try to support each other, regardless of what your hobby is, regardless of what career you have, to me, that's important. That's what I value in friendships.
Yeah, I think it's also just checking in, because I would say I'm a very low maintenance friend. Like, you probably will see me once a year. But like the thing is, my whole entire life I've seen friendships as like, if I talk to you that next day, whether it's been a month or a year or 5 years, I still see you as that friend I saw you yesterday. And I wouldn't be like, oh, this is awkward.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I'm a bit like a mushroom. Just still thrive in the dark on my own.
Yeah,
That's
we'll be mushrooms together.
yeah, I'm a private person by nature. I don't really share much on socials or anything. I'd like to spend time alone, but yeah, checking up on friends every now and then is still good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go like you months or a year without seeing anyone and then suddenly pop out and say, "Hey guys."
Sunflower out
Yeah,
of
like
dirt.
like take off where you left off last time. You could still talk to them like a brother or sister or whatever.
That was the biggest struggle for me. I don't know why, like in high school, like just those earlier years, because I was always like that. And I always was the person that reached out to someone that I met like 3 years ago. And I like say I just moved schools. And I'd be like, hey, what's up? And then people would actually be really awkward. And back then I didn't understand. I'm like, why are you so weird? Just because I've moved away doesn't mean I'm like a different person. Like I'm still the same person. And that was the thing that got me most of the time. When I was young, I was like, I don't get it. But I guess it was just like, it shows the type of people that I was reaching out to or hanging out didn't see that in friendships. So
yeah, and it comes down to the mindset holistically.
yeah, like also another thing was like they just suddenly became very secretive. It's like as if they don't know me anymore. You're like, we were good friends. Like
Yeah. Could be that they're just insecure of themselves, you know what I mean? So you gotta flick them away, mate. Just fucking flick them away.
on the contrary, is there something that we can do ourselves to be a better friend? Sorry, let me rephrase that question. Is there something that you can see in yourself that you could do better?
For me, probably check in on people more. I'm just so used to being alone most of the time doing my own thing that I forget to check up on other people. I'm always in my own head doing my own thing. So time flies. Like you just do that. And then next thing you know, 3 months have gone and you haven't said anything to any of your friends.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Like, even though, yeah, I said to maintain healthy friendships is to check in, I do check in once in a while, but I think I could do more of it. And I'm such a person that's just like, I think we've mentioned in the past episodes, is I'm just a like ever forward kind of person. I like once I'm onto something, I'm still like moving forward and I don't look back. And sometimes with not looking back, I forget to check in with people or see how they're going. Or last time I talked to a friend, they were like, "Oh, I'm about to apply for this thing," and
Yeah.
I don't check in, and be like, "How did that go?" or something like that. I just completely forget. So just being able to manage or do a little bit more of that would be good to strengthen friendships.
Yeah, nice. I think I do really well with checking up with people.
If I don't say so myself.
I mean, I am just genuinely curious with people, and the ones that I'm like more closer with, I would just randomly message sometimes.
No, I do actually agree. I see you reaching out,
Yeah,
checking on people.
I don't know. Sometimes I just go, oh fuck, I haven't spoken to this person in ages. I would be like, oh, hey, what are you doing, man? You
But
know?
is there something that you can see in yourself that you can take action in
Yeah.
to strengthen?
I think the biggest thing that I want to work on really is to organize more like face to face. I think we're so ingrained with tech and we always
Social media.
bloody chat and stuff like that, which is great. It's a good thing to have, but I think to have the human interaction is really important too. And I think we lack that.
Yeah, especially with like social media, you can kind of see where people are up to. So it's like kind of eliminates that checking in sometimes
right.
because you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, last
Yeah.
week I saw that they went to some cool
Yeah,
restaurant.
that's true. That's probably partly the reason why I don't really.
Because you're like on social.
yeah.
So used to it, yeah.
Yeah, Sam went to Pizza Hut last week. He's all G.
Yeah, but like every time, I guess to reflect, every time we would catch up, we always have such a fucking good time.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's, you know what I mean? And it's like we always go far out. We need to do this more. And because we are so busy with our own lives, it just goes, straight over our heads. So I think for me, I would love to just do more face-to-face stuff.
Yeah. So we'll do a quick wrap up. So we wrap up on the biggest lessons that has influence in how you see friendships today.
Going through shit times, like having who I thought were friends break my trust, not respecting my boundaries, and be very selfish in the way they do things. Experiencing people like that made me pivot in the way I see or understand what a real friend is in my eyes. That's why today it helps me value the friends I do have.
Yeah. Because you can see the good in
You see
the good friends.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You've been through that sort of shit to realize what the good is.
Actually, that's a really good one. I'll add one. Is a lot of these lessons that I've learned is things that I didn't do. So, for example, I picked up on red flags or cues that this person's not interested or like not a good friend. I'm a give a benefit of the doubt kind of person, but I give too many benefits and not making a change for myself or having that hard conversation or whatever it is. Like, there's all these cues and signs that's just telling me that this friendship is not going to end up good or is not going to the right place or not sharing the same values, but I keep sticking to it because it's like, oh, I've known this person or this person is my friend, and it's like maybe they will change, but it's just knowing when to stop. You can give up and you can stop that friendship, and knowing that it's fine to do that. That's a big lesson for me.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson is being selfish for yourself. I think you need to go through the shit that what Howard mentioned before is going through the hard times. And those hard times are lessons that you learn, which now you value and you know what to value in your true friendships. So I think ultimately, if you're in that situation where you need to make a decision and decide whether that friendship is a true friendship, sometimes you need to be a little bit selfish and actually say, look, this particular group is not for me, and actually set those boundaries and saying, no, fuck off.
Yeah, and sometimes like you really can't care. Like if you care and be like, oh, I feel bad or that, like that is what makes you in that limbo mode, which is
Yeah,
like
that's
my
right.
mistake. I'm in the limbo mode. So sometimes like if you really know that this isn't for you, it's not about like you have to make it a scene or dramatic. It's just like that's just not for me. And don't be like, oh, I feel bad. What are they going to think about me? And blah, blah, blah. You really just can't care about that stuff
Yeah.
because you can't control what they think about you.
Sometimes you just gotta fucking pull the trigger, mate. You just gotta pull that trigger.
Yeah, nice. There's some good lessons. Yeah, so if anyone is going through difficult friendships or looking to build friendships, hopefully this episode has helped, and let us know what you value in friendship.
That's right. And once again, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.
Goodbye.